appealing to the Russian leader over an unproven allegation that a Russian oligarch married to the former Moscow mayor paid a large sum of money to a business that Hunter Biden helped found.
She gave him $3.5 million. So now I would think Putin would know the answer to that. I think he should release it. I think Putin now would be willing to probably give that answer. I'm sure he knows.
The United States has deemed that Putin and the Russian soldiers have committed war crimes, and yet Trump is asking him for help. It is truly staggering.
None of Vladimir Putin's war crimes have changed Donald Trump's mind about Vladimir Putin being a genius who he can ask for favors.
Jason Chaffetz, that Trump interview, which has gotten little coverage on Fox, has Donald Trump in the middle of this brutal war in Ukraine publicly asking Putin to release dirt, which may or may not be true, on the Biden family. Is that newsworthy?
It's newsworthy that the former president made such comments, but he was responding to a direct question. Any Cub reporter, if they wanted to figure out how is it that Hunter Biden received millions of dollars, allegedly, from the former mayor of Moscow, would say, hey, maybe we should ask the Russians. That is not a groundbreaking new revelation, and something that years ago, I believe, Donald Trump has thrown out. So it's not new news. But don't put it out there and say that, hey, Donald Trump was doing this and ignoring everything in Ukraine. That is just fundamentally not true. He's answering a direct question.
Yeah, but politicians ignore questions they don't want to answer all the time. Harold, Trump's response was about criticism by Joe Scarborough on MSNBC, which he always claimed never to watch, saying, I hear that very low-rated Morning Joe and his psycho wife, Mika, that I should not be asking about this, that the money went to Hunter and Joe. Again, we have absolutely no evidence that Joe Biden got a dime here. So he stands by this public request to Putin about the Bidens.
He does. I would differ with Jason here too. I think that President Trump continues to be uniquely unserious around a very serious issue. If an investigation should take place, let's let the investigation take place with Mr. Biden, young Mr. Biden, and if there's anybody else that needs to be implicated, that investigation would unfold that way. But in the middle of a war, I need not pile on. I think the narrative is already there. Again, it reminds you of some of the things that I think a lot of Americans who voted for President Trump, I was not one of them in 2016, who voted against him in 2020. These are some of the things that I think people were hoping to rid the news stations of, and for that matter, rid their news feeds of.
Right. Jason, you know, journalists are pointing out that this is reminiscent of the so-called perfect phone call with Zelenskyy when Trump was holding up U.S. military aid and trying to get him to put out negative information about the Bidens. But I've just asked you, even as a cold-hearted political play, how does this help the Republicans?
Well, I think there's a great deal of frustration that there is all kinds of information out there about Hunter Biden and the Biden family taking, as Peter Schweitzer says, more than $30 million directly. There are situations in Romania, in Mexico, in China, in Ukraine itself. How come the media has such a lack of intellectual curiosity? That laptop, the new revelation that, hey, that is actually real. Fox has been reporting that a year and a half ago. That laptop was real. Nobody is asking these hard questions. Nobody's pushing Hunter Biden. The rest of the media, they just absolutely ignore it. And for those of us that care about law and order and justice and everything else, it's just terribly frustrating that the media doesn't do its job.
Fair comment, but I noticed you didn't say that Trump's comments helped the Republicans. Harold, just finally, Donald Trump's detractors say, you know, he always makes it about himself and his political prospects. Hasn't he given these critics, including those he calls fake news, more ammunition here?
I think without question. Look, I'm one that believes our body, to answer your question directly, yes. I think the body politic is weakened when there are not serious ideas being batted around on both sides. I'm a Democrat, but I love an honest, serious debate about the future of the country and the issues that will define that. I think when President Trump does what he did over the last several days, it animates the worst part of American politics. And it's, again, I think one of the reasons that he was not reelected. And to your question you asked, Jason, without question, it hurts Republicans, it hurts the body politic, and it aids Democrats coming November, and for that matter, 2 years from now.
All right. By the way, we talked last segment about media hawkishness. MSNBC host Ali Velshi has just come out and said that he wants direct military involvement in Ukraine by the U.S. and NATO. So at least some people on other networks are saying, yeah, let's get into a war. Obviously, that has its risks, as we talked about quite acutely. Good to see you both. Harold Ford, Jason Chaffetz, thanks very much for joining us. Up next, Griff Jenkins on the challenges of reporting from Ukraine, and later, why the media fixation on the Oscars slap is stronger than ever.